If you are a new grad just starting out your career, then this video is for you. For those of you who are new to the channel, I'm Mika Kim, and I'm currently a senior software engineer at a big tech company. I have hit my 8-year mark. Time flies. So, you just graduated. That is very exciting, but that is also very terrifying. One day you're basically studying for finals, and the next day you're in a meeting full of grown-ups. People are throwing around acronyms that you've never heard of. I'm creating this video as if it's like a letter to myself 8 years ago, just starting off my career. And these are top 10 tips that I wish someone told me when I was starting off. I'll go through very practical, real world life examples that will help your career launch be a more smoother experience. So let's get started. Tip number 1 is don't stress about knowing everything. When companies hire you as a new grad or a junior starting off in a role, they know that you're not going to know everything. And a lot of times people assume that you actually don't know anything. So this is actually a perfect time to ask a lot of questions. Be very curious about everything that's happening around you. There really truly isn't a such thing as a bad question, especially if you're starting off in your career. Now, obviously, if you keep asking the same questions over and over again, that might be a little bit of a red flag. So make sure to note things down after you've asked questions so you don't have to ask it again. But a lot of the times, people's tolerance for you to ask questions or not know anything is much higher when you are starting off in your career. This is actually an advice that I used to get a lot when I was an intern or when I was also starting off my career as a new grad, where people told me like, hey, this is your chance to ask a lot of questions, your chance to be very curious. The expectations of you as a new grad or a junior is also very low. They know you're here to learn, they know you're here to ramp up and pick up things, so take that to your full advantage. Even when I was starting off my career in consulting, what does a new grad know about consulting realistically? Like nothing. So I asked a lot of questions, I took a lot of notes. I got a lot of advice, and that really helped me down the road. And obviously, you want to excel, you want to get your feet wet, and you want to prove that you're good. But in order to have a really good foundation, you need to know how to ask a lot of questions. The company has hired you based on your potential, not your perfection. So don't fret about that. Ask a lot of questions, take lots of notes, and be comfortable learning on the fly. Tip number 2 is build relationships very early in your career. Work isn't just about tasks and how well you're able to execute these tasks. It's also about people and working with different people. I think a lot of new grads don't really understand this, and they just try to focus on getting the task done really quickly or getting the task done really well. But what's really important is think of building a relationship in your workplace almost like accruing interest in your bank account. Everyone that you work with, whether it's people that are more senior to you, whether it's your manager, whether it's leadership, or even like your peers, other new grads that have started with you, other juniors that have started with you, or interns that are there while you're working as a new grad, they are all really good connections to build. You never know who in your career is going to help you out next. So always make sure to build out the relationship and also make it genuine. You can definitely tell when people are networking just for the sake of networking, or they want to kind of get your help or use you down the line. So don't be like that. Be genuinely curious to learn about that person, what their interests are, who they are as a person, what their career story is, and it will really help you down the road. So for instance, when I was starting off my career at Deloitte, that was also one of the top advices that people would give you, to network a lot. And as much as I hated networking, because I'm an introvert, and I also have a video about that, of how to network as an introvert. If you're interested, go to my channel. But these kind of relationships that I've built really definitely did pay off later down the road. So for instance, I remember getting a coffee with one of like the senior managers, just to get to know them. They were just suggested to me by another person, being like, oh, I think it'd be a good opportunity for you to talk to them. And later down the road, they were actually able to connect me with certain projects that actually helped me transition into a different team. And even aside from you asking help or you thinking that someone's going to help you down the road, it also kind of puts your presence in their head too. If they need your help, or if they think you are a good fit for a project, or if they think that there's a good opportunity for you, like you are gonna be in their mind, versus if you've never talked to this person, they don't even know you exist. So even if networking isn't something that you really want to do, or you think it's not going to be helpful, I guarantee it is really helpful down the road. So Make relationships and build relationships really early in your career. I promise you it will pay off. Even also, aside from leadership, once you network with your peers and get close with your peers, they might end up being really, really good close friends. I love talking about my time in consulting, but when I started with a batch of new grads, and there were like hundreds of us that worked together. And I really ended up becoming really close friends with some of them. And they were a great support system when work was rough, when I was having a hard time, when I wanted to rant about something. They were great friends where I could just vent and talk about all this stuff without them getting bored, and with them also understanding all the context of your job. So don't treat work as like you clock in and you clock out and you just cross off the task list. Treat it also as like a relationship building exercise. Tip number 3 is learn to communicate like a pro. And honestly, over communication is always better than under communicating. So communicating comes in many forms, obviously, whether it's through emails, Slack messages, chats, threads, speaking up in meetings, etc., etc. And each of these communication forums have different purposes and a different way you want to present yourself. So in email, make sure to be very concise, make sure you're to the point so the people that are reading the email know what they're reading. In Slack messages or like messages, make sure you're providing kind of the right context of like what this thread or what this chat is about. And in meetings, make sure you ask meaningful questions or have meaningful things to contribute. And also, oftentimes than not, especially as a new grad or a junior, it is better to kind of speak up about something rather than just stay silent the whole time. Obviously, when you're just starting off, I know you want to just sit and be like a fly on the wall and learn and pick up things. But there's a certain point where I have seen this behavior in some new grads where they'll just be in meetings, just staying quiet and silent the whole time. And as a senior on the team, I don't know if that means they know everything or if they're just unsure of everything, if they have any questions or if they're not interested. Like, you really can't tell. So make sure to like speak up and say something. And that was also something that I was struggling with when I was a junior on the job, where I thought it would be better to just kind of stay silent and not say anything because I was also afraid that it was going to make me look dumb. But one of the advices that my manager gave me at the time was like, hey, if you don't think you have anything really meaningful to contribute, I'm sure you'll have a meaningful question to ask. And even if you think it's a silly question or a dumb question, it probably isn't. And the question that you ask might be helpful to other people. And that's kind of true. I'll be in meetings where new grads will ask a question, and yeah, maybe it is a little basic, but it still, to me, indicates that you're trying to participate in the meeting, you are interested in learning more about the project, and you are going through that thought process of learning. So I recommend that you always kind of talk about these things and ask questions and participate over being completely silent. Tip number 4 is you want to learn how to manage your manager. So I know that sounds very counterintuitive, but I want you to kind of change your mindset of, instead of being told what to do by your manager, take initiative in cultivating that relationship with your manager. So I'm not trying to say be a suck up or be a try hard. What I'm trying to say is, at the end of the day, it is your career and you're the one that's responsible for your career growth. And make sure your manager knows that and your expectations are set very, very clear. What I like to do is have regular one-on-ones with my managers. I've been doing that for the whole longevity of my career so far, even starting with internships. I would always have regular check-ins to make sure that I'm meeting their expectations and their expectations are clearly communicated to me, so that I can also tell them, hey, these are some things that I'm interested in working on. These are areas that I want to grow in. And so then my manager, and especially good managers, will keep that in mind when they're looking for new projects for you to work on or give you advice based on how you can grow on what you talked about. So make sure you also manage your manager and take that initiative to build that relationship with your manager. And speaking of taking initiatives, tip number 5 is take initiative, but don't burn out. You don't want to be a Debbie Downer and say no to everything, but you also don't want to overpromise and say yes to everything and feel burnt out. At the end of the day, a career is a career, a job is a job. It shouldn't fully consume your life. I have definitely been guilty of doing this when I was a junior in consulting, because a lot of times people in consulting are also very like type A personalities. Everyone says yes to everything. It's a very high performer environment. It's a very grind culture. And because of that, I kind of felt the pressure that I had to say yes to everything. So my work days would be crazy. It would be like 12 to 16 hours. A lot of times I'd work on the weekends and holidays, and it just really, really sucked. And one of the reasons why I was also striving for this is because I was promised a promotion. I thought that if I worked on my current project, like the actual project that I was billable on, that was already strenuous, and take on extracurricular activities like helping write RFPs, which is requests for proposals, which is kind of basically consulting firms telling companies, hey, like this is why you should hire our consulting firm. But that was kind of aside from your project time. So this is kind of like extra work you had to do and other additional extra projects on top of that, just so that I could have like a good package, like a promotion package, and be like, look at all these things I've done to give me a promotion. And I was promised that, and I busted my ass doing that. But guess what? Because of my team switch and political reasons and blah, 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 I didn't get that promotion. And I felt so burnt out. It was like one of the lowest points of my career personally, especially as a naive junior. It kind of felt like the end of the world. I felt like I was so behind. I felt very embarrassed in front of my peers because I was the one that didn't get the promotion. So it kind of made me feel very incompetent. And from there, I learned I need to have boundaries. I need to make sure to say no to things when I think it's going to be too much, and prioritize my life and my mental well-being over just coming across enthusiastic in front of all these people. I know it's a very hard thing to balance, especially if you're starting out in your career, but keep that in the back of your head and just ask yourself that question when you feel like you're about to burn out. Is this sustainable? Is this really right for me? What is really driving me to overcommit? So think about those things. Tip number 6 is feedback is literally going to be your superpower and what's going to level you up. Ask for feedback super early. Don't wait for annual reviews or quarterly reviews. Don't wait for that. Just ask for feedback. Ask your managers, ask your peers, ask people that you're working with. Ask them to give you feedback. At the company that I currently work for, feedback is a very, very important part of our culture, our work culture, and it's actually been really, really helpful for me. Even like after meetings or a project, everyone is empowered to give feedback, whether it's good feedback or constructive feedback to a person. And also, folks are expected to receive feedback very frequently. When you first kind of get into the mindset, it does feel a little awkward, but once it becomes normalized, it really, really does help you because you don't have to wait a full timeline, a full year to be able to hear those things. And actually, a lot of the times, feedback is better when it's given in a very timely manner versus like having it like stew and brew over time. So a couple of reasons for this is like, one, let's say one of the projects you were running, you had some feedback about like, hey, you're not communicating enough. And we're hearing things last minute. Imagine if you heard that feedback right away versus like having it stretch for multiple months on a project. How you could really instantly change that. Being able to over communicate is like so easy to do. It's not even like something that takes a lot of time. It just means you send more emails, you send out more messages. And that could have made a lot of people's lives easier and also helped you run the project better. Also, like it takes away a lot of those kind of like begrudging emotions from people too, because oftentimes we have feedback for our coworkers. It's just natural because no one's perfect. And if you're not able to receive the feedback early, there might be some people that just have it stew in them for a long time and they just think of you as this one piece of feedback. Don't take feedback as criticism. Like you should really think of it as a shortcut to your growth. And when I look at juniors and new grads that start off their career, it's people that take feedback really well and are able to act on it really quickly are the ones that actually see a lot of exponential growth. Now, tip number 7, this is a little bit of a tangent than just talking about your career, but remember to manage your finances. I know it's exciting to get your first big paycheck, and it's really easy to be like, oh, I'm going to treat myself. There's this thing that I wanted for such a long time. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to go out and eat more and things like that. And I'm not saying to not treat yourself because yes, you should definitely treat yourself, but make sure you're budgeting and not spending all of your money to upgrade your lifestyle. Because lifestyle creep is definitely a thing where the more money you make, the more money you spend, and you end up not saving enough. So just take a day to sit with your finances and budget. If you don't want to, you don't have to budget to like You don't have to really micro budget being like, okay, I can only spend like $100 on groceries a month. I'm only going to spend X amount on like food. Like, you don't even have to go to that extent, but make sure you're contributing to your retirement fund. For my US viewers, that's your 401k or your Roth IRA. For my Canadian viewers, that's like your RSP or your TFSA. Make sure you're storing some money for your retirement fund, and also make sure you're storing some money for your emergency fund. Especially with how volatile the job market is, you just don't know if you're not going to have a job and you're not going to have a steady income. So you want to make sure you have some cash that can sustain you. You just don't know what life is going to throw at you. So make sure you have some money saved so that you have that sense of financial security and stability. I promise you, it is really, really going to help you. And it's also going to give you like a good sense of security down the line. And tip number 8 is treat your career like a long game. And that kind of ties back to one of my previous points of like not feeling burnt out, but you really have to see the big picture. When I was starting off my career, I really thought I would be in consulting for a while. I had this whole plan of like, I'm going to get promoted to consultant from an analyst and then senior consultant. And then once I become a manager, I'm going to go look for like an industry job, or maybe I will stay in consulting and take the partner track, like blah, blah, all these things. But you truly don't know where your career is going to take you. Maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but you don't have to have a rigorous 10-year plan. It might not work out the way you want it to be. You might change interests, the economy might change, or the job market might change. And your first job won't define you forever. It really, really won't. As I mentioned earlier, when I didn't get that promotion to consultant, I really felt so behind compared to my peers, because a lot of my peers did get their promotion and I didn't. And I felt honestly like a loser. I did. It sucked. And I was so embarrassed. And I was like, wow, like, what am I going to do? I really wanted to hide. But I am thriving right now. I'm so happy with where I am in my career. I'm at a reputable company. I'm making a good salary. I have such a great work-life balance. And I really enjoy the work I'm doing as well. I'm not saying this to brag about my current situation, but what I'm saying is like, just because you have some downside or because you kind of tripped a little bit in the first parts of your career, it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. And when I didn't get that promotion, I remember talking to my dad, who also used to be a consultant during his career. And he said, hey, look, this really sucks. But if you look back in 5 years, it's really not going to mean anything. It might be a good lesson, but it really, really is not going to break your heart when you think about it. And he was so right. If anything, that was a pivotal moment in my career where I was like, you know what, I am going to look for a new career. I'm going to stand up for myself and things like that. And it was a good life lesson, and it really didn't set me back in terms of my full career. And that's something that I try to keep in mind now all the time, where even if there's a setback in my career, it really isn't a setback. Your life is so long, your career is so long. So don't let that devastate you. Just use that as a momentum for something better, or as like a lesson. And look at me, I'm a software engineer. Like, I didn't think I would become a software engineer when I started off my career. If anything, that was something I didn't want to do. And that's a whole other story for next time, because this video would get too long, but here I am, and I am so happy. But in the next 5 years, like, who knows, maybe I'm not a software engineer anymore. So that leads to tip number 9, is always keep learning outside of your job. So I know it's really easy to kind of get siloed and rabbit holed into your current career because you think that's going to be like your future and you see yourself progressing in that career. And to a certain extent, yes, that might happen to you. And that is also something that's very important to upkeep. But also make sure you have your ears and eyes open to what's happening outside of your career as well. Whether it's taking online courses, doing kind of some side projects, it can be passion projects, or it can be just things you just work on because you think it will be better for your career, or just even reading books, reading articles. It helps you become a bit more adaptable. I have a background in math and computer science, but once I joined consulting, I really didn't have to code. But I made sure to kind of still keep my tabs on the tech news, like the tech industry, do like a couple of side projects here and there so that I didn't lose my coding skill set. And that really proved to be helpful down the line, because while I was in consulting, I did change into tech and like software engineering, part of the consulting branch, and eventually it helped me move into an actual tech company as a full-time software engineer. So make sure to kind of like keep your eyes and ears open. You don't have to dedicate hours to it all the time, but just keep the options there. You never know. And tip number 10, confidence will slowly but surely come over time. I do think a lot of people do struggle with imposter syndrome, even as senior software engineers or people that have had many years of experiences. We sometimes still do have imposter syndrome, and that's okay. That's normal, that's natural. Don't let it overconsume you. But one thing for sure is the more experience you get, the more things you've worked on, the more knowledge you acquire, and the more answers you have to questions, it really does boost your confidence down the line. It just takes some time. So be patient, be generous, and kind to yourself. Even if you feel like you don't belong, even if you feel like you got hired as a hoax, you're not. People saw potential in you. They're there to help you grow. And if you show up every single day, your confidence will grow and also your experience will grow. So those were the top 10 tips that I have. If you want me to go into any of those in more detail or talk a bit more about my experiences with all of these things, let me know in the comments. Also, if you have your own kind of set of tips that helped you navigate your career as a junior, also let me know in the comments. And I just want to say, you really don't have to have everything figured out. You just need to keep learning and keep moving forward, and you will get there. I hope this video helped, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!